Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher natan haTorah. Amen.
Amen.
All right. So, carrying on with covenants, we spoke a lot about Noah's covenant. Remember, we're doing this from a kingdom perspective, so what God is about and how we're doing things. So as God is establishing His kingdom, we have to ask Him, what is the process here? So when we got to Noah, we realized it was about dominion. It was about the Messiah coming to dwell on earth. Abraham, it was about people, to create a nation that belonged to him. And his story kind of carries on through Isaac, with Jacob, ends up with Joseph, then it ends up with slavery, and after slavery, at 400 years they cry out, and then they get down to God rescuing with the 10 wonders. And in the wonders, He sets them free, He mikvahs them. When do they go through a mikvah? What's a mikvah? Yeah, lots of exciting answers. When He opens up the Red Sea through the power of water and through the Spirit or through the Ruach, we get to this place where He recreates them. How do they see recreation in this? They were slaves and now they are free. Okay? So He starts to recreate this nation. Ideally, when they were sitting in Israel, they were a bunch, they understood they were all family, and it came down from these 12 tribes, and they ended up there, but they weren't really a people. They were a group of guys in Egypt, all kind of living accordingly. They knew they had some of this Hebraic idea. They had some father Abraham who had a God, but he's kind of forgotten us, and now obviously Egypt is the powerful one. Egypt's gods are the gods we need to worry about. And God comes down and He says, no, we're going to have a little conversation through a guy called Moses and Aaron, and they go and challenge Pharaoh and every one of their gods. Alright? Gets them across, starts to teach them, taking them through Mara, taking them to Elim, taking them through manna, taking them through water, or giving them water to drink, quail, and so we go on, and He builds them up to this point. God slowly starts to reveal what's important and what they need to be focusing on to get them to this point. Now, something we need to realize. From their perspective, they're set free, they have wealth. What would you do if you were given a whole bunch of money and got told there's a piece of land for you? What's your logical conclusion? How would you act?
Retire.
Retirement? Right. I'm out and I would run straight to the piece of land. Okay? Do not pass go, do not care. God, just get us there safely, and once you're there, you can let us go and buy our piece of land. And that would be it. How much unity would that have in considering as a nation? Not really. Everybody would buy sort of their own piece of land, and everybody would sort of split. But now we're in Canaan, and how many of you would think, do we act more like Egyptians in Canaan? Some of them become Canaanites in Canaan, and the God of Israel is where exactly? Nowhere to be found. He did some crazy things, He did some cool stuff. Some of us might cling to Him, some of us don't, because what we really want is comfort. We want comfort, we want safety, and we want provision. That's it. If you can give us those things, man is happy. So we will have our relationships, we will have whatever, but ultimately it's less about who God is and what He wants to establish, and more about ourselves. From God's perspective, is this going to do? Is this really the agenda? He set them free so that they can go and become like people everywhere else. No. How is God establishing His kingdom on earth through a people? He has to give them a little heart condition check. And He has to stop them, and He has to say, okay, I need you to understand something. So instead of letting them race off into Canaan with their wagons of gold and money and all the rest of it, He says, no. I'm going to take you through to a mountain first. And at this mountain moment, He's going to reveal Himself to a nation, and He's going to start to give them an identity. This is what we need to unpack. Okay? So go with me to Exodus 19.
Sorry, Exodus?
19. Alright, so this is basically going to set up what Exodus 20 is really about. It says, in the 3rd month, after the people of Israel had left the land of Egypt, the same day they came into Sinai desert. After settling there from Rephidim and arriving at the Sinai desert, they set up camp in the desert. There in front of the mountain, Israel set up camp. So it says they set up out from Rephidim. What happened at Rephidim? Right, there was no water. Okay? And they were moaning and they were saying, we need something to drink. And then Moses says, God told Moses to go and strike a rock. Which rock did he strike? Okay, many people believe the same word for rock and mountain is the same, so he went to the mountain of God and he struck it. Okay? No, it wasn't instruction the first time. And the second time when he was told to speak to the rock, didn't listen. Okay? So he goes to the mountain and he hits it. Now this is a common Middle Eastern practice, believe it or not. What happens is, because of calcification and certain rocks they collect the dew and it hides behind the little rocks and it creates a little pocket. And water gets collected drop for drop. Okay? So when you go even today into walkies around the wilderness, if you're really desperate for water, you can hit a rock and that which is trapped inside pours out and there will be enough water for your flocks and for you to last you just to keep you going. But we're not talking about a little bit of sheep and 1 or 2 people here. Okay? There's lots of debate about what the actual number is, but for the sake of the greater part of it, the biggest number we think is probably around 2.5 million people, plus flocks. Okay? That's a pretty big rock. So, if God did that in a natural way, let's not discount this, He would put water drop for drop in the mountain of God for a really long time. How long? Would He be planning ahead, do you think?
Probably since He spoke to Abraham.
Yeah, at least from here, building up to the 400 years of slavery, and He says, well, you were going down to Egypt, I was already preparing your drinking water for when you come out. Now, I think there's some beauty in that when He says, don't worry about tomorrow. You know, God's already worried about 400 years from now. You're still trying to figure out what you're going to eat. He's like, no, I'm a little bit bigger than that. So He goes up and He says that. If not, worst case scenario, we have an interesting sort of cross-reference here. Water from the rock will give us an interesting passage that pops up much, much later in Ezekiel. Now Ezekiel, there is a portion that says that out of the very altar of God, from underneath the throne room, a little stream will come out. And as it runs, it gets thicker and it runs faster and it goes down all the way through to the Dead Sea. And in the Dead Sea, what happens when the water hits the Dead Sea?
Life.
Right, it resurrects it. Something that was dead now becomes life. And that's the same thing that Yeshua stood up in John 7 at the time of Sukkot, at the end of it when they would be praying for rain, and they would be pouring a water libation out onto that altar, hoping for the day that comes. So from the very throne room of God, from His very presence, living water will run and people will be resurrected. Right? And we sort of see a very interesting image here when we see from that picture, we can look back to this moment at Rephidim, when they were kind of dead inside but they were free. And He said, life comes from me and me alone. If you drink of this water, you're going to be changed forever. So the kingdom is about life. The kingdom is about setting captives free. The kingdom is about God making His presence known here. But He wants to help you understand the relationship that it carries. So He gets you to this point and He says, remember when I brought you out from Rephidim? It says, remember when you thought you didn't have anything and you were just brought out to die. You were not brought here to die, you were brought out for a reason. The reason is you need to find me. So, verse 3, Moshe went up to God, and Adonai called to him from the mountain, here is what you're to say to the household of Yaakov and tell the people of Israel. Now, we've spoken about this quite extensively. Why does he make the distinction between Jacob and Israel? Jacob represents the physical seed. Okay? So, the promise he made to Abraham, through you and your sons, physical, Isaac, Jacob, Joseph, 12 tribes, and we're sitting here. Now, Israel, why is that different?
It was a mixed multitude.
Because we had a mixed multitude of people that saw all these miracles and wonders happen, and then they were like, they're leaving with their God, and we've not seen anything like this, so we're going to go with them. And now they're sitting at the mountain as well, and it's like, well, where do we fit in? And God does not make a difference, a distinction between Jacob. Well, he does make a distinction in the physical, but from the spiritual side of things, he doesn't say, okay, Jacob, Israel, and those other guys. He includes them in Israel. Paul understands this later when he talks about it in Romans, and he says, you're engrafted. You're part of the same tree. You're part of the same family. You were bought with a price, you were brought in, and you were engrafted into this tree. So now you're part of us. And then later he'll make a statement and he'll say, not all of Israel is God's Israel. Because sometimes you're called an Israelite because of birth, but you don't follow the God of Israel. Like saying you're a seed of Jacob and saying you're a son of Abraham. New Testament makes an interesting sort of distinction between the two. If you're going to be a son of Abraham, you better have faith like Abraham. Was Ishmael considered a true son of Abraham? No. Even though he was his seed, he never followed the God of Abraham. Yeah? You know what I'm saying? Exactly. Okay? So he comes up and he says, through the seed and for everybody else that joins me, you have seen what I did to the Egyptians and how I carried you on eagle's wings and brought you unto myself. Now if you will be careful, if you will pay careful attention to what I say and keep my covenant, then you will be my own treasure from among all the peoples. For all the earth is mine. You will be a kingdom of Kohanim, a kingdom of priests for me, a nation set apart. These are the words you are to speak to the people of Israel. So he gives them 3 promises, yes? And he calls them, Nick did the teaching on that, he called them a segula. Right? What is a segula?
Prized possession.
A prized possession. And if we break it up into, I know some of you have done this, you break it up into the Hebrew. To
protect, gather, teach, and reveal.
Okay. So the purpose of who you are is you will become that treasure. And if we break that up into paleo, you guys all know what I'm talking about? Each letter carries, I suppose we better do this now because it's going to come up later. The segula is how you would write it in Hebrew. Now the Paleo Hebrew would see each letter is a picture. Each picture has a meaning. Okay? Now there's a few different options. Okay? What was your summation?
One didn't have the vav, but it's
Okay.
the samech is to protect,
Okay, to protect,
together,
together,
to teach and reveal. Teach. We don't have the vav.
okay,
So the vav would then be
to attach
attach,
or join
teach,
to the shepherd,
teach,
or to teach,
and to reveal.
to reveal. So your job as a peculiar treasure is to protect, to gather, to attach to the shepherd, or to teach and to reveal. So you're not just a pretty thing, you actually have a function. Okay? What was the next promise he made? There would be a peculiar treasure?
Kingdom of priests.
Kingdom of priests. If we look at that statement, Malchut. Malchut, if we're dealing with kingdom dynamic, yeah, we're starting to get to the heart of it. Where do you keep your treasure?
Safe place.
In a safe place. Where's a safe place in antiquity, ancient times? Temple. So in the Mishkan, who wore the most bling out of all of Israel? The high priest. The kingdom of Kohanim. So the treasure and the Mishkan, the tabernacle, have a link. The priest, the word they use there is Kohen, or Kohanim, plural. So when we break down Kohanim, now to reveal the heir. Who's going to sit on the throne? So what does a priest do? He reveals Yeshua. Interesting, right? Because where is their area of work? It starts with the door, where atonement needs to take place. Sin gets pressed onto an animal. Then sin gets dealt with. Mercy is received. Washing takes place. We enter into the menorah area where all of a sudden we start to see the righteousness of God. He is the bread of our presence. Our prayers go up to Him because He intercedes, or Yeshua intercedes on our behalf. And because of His prayers, we have the privilege of walking into the very throne room of God. Did anybody miss that? Savannah, you with me? Right? So each article, each piece of furniture in the tabernacle tells us piece for piece about function of Messiah. And as a priest, it is our job to reveal Messiah. Okay, you with me? What's the third promise?
A nation set apart.
A nation set apart. What does set apart mean? Okay, it means kadosh. Kadosh. Alright. Did anybody break up kadosh? You want me to give you fastest fingers first? While you're busy with that, I'm going to go and do that. Look up for the spelling of kadosh, and then we'll break it up into detail. Alright. Are you guys okay with this so far? You're alright. I want you to... Yeah, we can. Kaf? Dalet? Vav? Shin. Okay, so what do you have? Kaf? This is the part where you pull out the funny little bookmarks and you find matching symbols. Okay, so let's go with the now. The door. To attach or join or nail. To press or separate. Allow the way or the door to join or to attach, as in so that you can be separate. So through the blood of Christ, you're going to be separate. You're going to be separate because of your calling. You're going to be separate, set apart, belonging to God. As God establishes His kingdom on earth, you will not belong to the earth, you belong to Him. Okay? Now, I want to go to chapter 20. Now, we've kicked this about a lot with Shabbat, so I want to give you another angle. Okay. cookie competition is going away.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm not doing anything,
I've heard that a lot. People are like, you're going to be blown away by my cookie. I don't know. All I know is I'm going to eat them all.
but
Standing judge. All right. So, if this is something you don't normally have in your translation, right? Okay. If you look in a complete Jewish, you will see with each commandment, you will have commandment number 1 will have a Hebrew letter next to it, Aleph. Okay. They don't number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. They use the letters. So the first commandment will be commandment Aleph, which is commandment number 1. Okay? So when we look at these and we start to tie in, we started to play with this on Wednesday night. I took it a layer, a few layers deeper. But for now, we are just going to focus on where we are here. In the sacred space. Okay. So, we are going to just unpack this ever so slightly. I think that's probably going to be... It's probably going to be one of those things. It's going to be one of those statements. When it says unpack, please run away.
Run.
Okay. You will excuse the way I write. You'll see there Alephs and that are in a calligraphy styled pen and beautifulness. I'm not that good. Okay, let's call the scribe. So we've got Aleph, Bet. So we've got 1, we've got 2, 3 is Gimel, 4 is Dalet, 5 is Hey, try to write bigger, 6 is Vav, too big. No. 7 is Zain, 8 is Chet, 9 is Tav, and 10 is Ayud. Okay, so basically 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. We all agree that there are 10 commandments. Okay, now depending on your translation, the first one gets a bit iffy. Okay? Now, they will say the statement is, I am Yud-Heh-Vav-Veh, your God. And then they say the second one who brought you out of the land of Egypt, from the abode of slavery. Okay? In Hebraic understanding, the first statement is the most defining one. If it is about the kingdom, I am Yud-Heh-Vav-Veh. Who brought you out of Egypt, bondage, I set you free. Okay? So the statement is, this is your God. I am Yud-Heh-Vav-Veh, your God. Okay? Bet. What is the next one? Okay? Well, before we get to the letters.
To have now the gods before me.
Okay? So here we start talking about idolatry. Idols. Right? No graven image. You're not allowed to make an image of him on earth, on the earth above or below, in the water. He said, I'm a jealous God. You need to love me and obey my mitzvot. Right? Next one. Do not take the name in vain or lightly. Okay, I'm going to put here ketubah, because when you get married, you take on his name, his surname. It's a representation. Alright? Next one. Shabbat. This one we need to unpack. For those who weren't at the ladies' conference, I gave you a little bit of a sneak peek yesterday. Next one. Okay.
That's a nice
Yeah, that's nice.
one.
Father and mother. And that is live long in the land.
Spot.
Okay? It's the first one, or the first of the mitzvahs that carries a positive consequence with it. If you do this, you will live long in the land that I'm giving you. Okay? Vav.
Do not murder your child.
No, do not murder.
No, one is for the kids, the other one's for the parents.
See, those two are linked.
Okay, when you look at murder in many translations, or you might have had a discussion with someone before, it says if God is against, it says do not kill. So why does God then allow David to go and wipe out cities, etc., etc.? If they understood Torah, they would understand the context of what they're talking about, and God goes into deep understanding of the difference between premeditated murder and accidental death. Okay? There are big differences between the two. They use that as an excuse to say, well, God said this and then He tells you to do that, therefore He's contradictory, I won't believe in Him. They've not taken the time to understand what's going on here. Don't get caught with that one. Zayin.
No adultery.
Adultery. And again, I'm just going to put in brackets here, idols. Idolatry is the same. Chet.
No stealing.
Stealing. Evil. Next one.
False evidence.
False witness. And Yud? Covenant. All right. So, we're going to start making some pictures. Okay. When we look at the first four, let me do this up. They deal with God. My relationship in the kingdom with Him here. All said. If you noticed how the first four have way more descriptives than the rest of them. Look at the paragraphs as it's set up. Number one's the statement, this is who I am, I set you free, don't you forget it. No other gods, paragraph. Don't use my name lightly. Smaller sentence, Shabbat, paragraph, and then everything else after that is pretty much one-liners until it gets to covenant. Okay? So big things of how I relate to Him in His kingdom. From 5 to 10 deals really with our relationship with each other. If we could summarize it in a point, it would say, what is the greatest commandment? Shema Israel, hear and listen, O Israel, the Lord is God, the Lord is one. The second commandment that is likened to it, love your neighbor as you love yourself, for this is all of Torah and prophets. You understand that in the Hebraic mindset they already started to break that up. Alright, so, Charlie, good. What time is it? Yeah.
25 minutes.
We're still got 20 minutes. Are we good? Okay, check if this story. Oh, our brain's still intact.
Yes.
Alright, it's all good.
100%.
Okay,
Lemons.
we were paying attention. If you see Michael get up and stretch, feel free to do the same. Apparently he falls asleep. Alright, so when we start looking at this, we can see in the basic outline God is trying to make statements. But now I want to start to look at the links between the letters and what they're trying to say about the statements. Okay? So Aleph is, what does Aleph mean? Go to your little card. Ox, strong or first. Okay. How many of you guys remember the study we did on the name? How many of your brains heard it after 5 minutes of studying the brain? Studying it. After 5 minutes, did your brain hurt? Yes. Okay, it hurt my brain, so I don't know about yours. When we start looking at the name of God, Yud He Vav He, which we discovered through lots of many hours of study and prayer, that we got up to an understanding of a title. I want you to go quickly for me to Exodus 3:14. We're going to simplify this all nice and quick like. The more we do this, the more it will make common knowledge. Right? Exodus 3:14. It said, God said to Moshe, when he asked him, what is your name that I should go and tell them? God answers him by saying, you will call me. What does your translation say? When you Okay, I am who I am, or I will be what I will be. The correct translation is will be because it's future. Okay? He uses this term, if you don't mind, I'll write it here. Here means I will be. I will be what I will be. Ihe asher ihe. So, when people say, what is the name of God? Does that sound like a name to you?
No.
No. He says, it's me. I will be whatever I will be. You're not going to define God by a singular title. Whether it is El, what we translate as God, whether it is Yah, a shortened poetic form of the Yud He Vav He, whether it is El Shaddai, whereas I know every need, whether it is Ha-Elyon, which is God Most High, whether it is Yud He Vav He Tzevaot, what we call the Lord of Hosts, and we get so on. Adonai, Lord. All of these are titles that he used. Okay? Especially in this Hebraic roots movement, we're getting to the place that they sort of get brought into a little subsection called sacred names, where they say if you call or if you use the name God, you are saying you don't know which God you're talking to. Scripture itself defines it. Anybody who called on the name of El understood they were talking about the El of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. When you say Adonai, you're talking about the Lord. Because it's about relationship. If he is God, if he is the creator, Elohim, I am the created. If he is the Lord, if he is king, I am the servant. Later to Yeshua's sons and daughters, yes? If he is Ha-Elyon, God Most High, he's indescribable. And we have books where people have refused to use any other title, they use specific ones. Daniel, he is Ha-Elyon. Even though in the beginning, in Genesis, we see the title Yud He Vav He, we see it played out. Okay? But to them, as a function, how he relates to you. And Yeshua carried on that teaching, and he says, when you call on his name, what are you going to call him? Abba. Abba means? No. Av means father. Abba means daddy. Little children speak. Unless you become like one of these little ones, you will not see the kingdom. You cry out to him like a child. Isn't that interesting? So he doesn't say you will pronounce his name this and this and this and this. He says you call him daddy and the rest will take care of itself. You understand who you are? That's your daddy. You are a son and daughter. The rest is relationship title. Okay? So, if we follow with the idea that he's talking about that, and he backs up the statement with something interesting. Just check with me in Exodus. He says, you will call me, I will be what I will be. Iyeh asher iyeh. And he added, here's what you are to say to the people of Israel. Iyeh has sent me to you. God said further to Moses, say this to the people of Israel. Yud He Vav He, the God of the fathers, the God of Avraham, Yitzhak, and Yaakov, has sent me to you. This is my name forever. This is how I am to be remembered, generation after generation. So he gives you a clue of what he's talking about here, and it's about time. Forever. And when we understand that, if he will be, what does it mean to say he is? Hoveh. I am. Present tense. When he says I was, is the term haya. I was. I was, I am, I will forever be. This is my name forever. Forever is a word called le or lam.
So the 3 is the forever. All 3 of those is infinitive.
Right. So when he says, I will be whatever for be, I was, I am, and I will be. Are you guys following the logic? Okay? So he's using past, present, and future tense to describe who he is. He does not change. As is the same yesterday, today, and forever. Yeshua is the same yesterday, today, and forever. And it all brings us back to Exodus 3:14. Okay? Now here's something interesting. When we start to put in the Yud He Vav He with these ideas, Yeh, he will be, changes in Hebrew to Yi, Yeh. He will be. You with me?
Say it again.
He will be instead of I will be.
Is yeah.
Yeh, I will be. Yi, Yeh, he will be. So because we have a Yud, a Yah, and we understand the vowel pointings according to rabbinic literature as well, that is the same vowel pointings. We have a Ya, we have a Ha, we have a Va, and we have a Ya.
And you put that F.
Ye, Ho, Ba.
That is
I am who I am, I will be, I did it. I was, I am, I will be forever. It's a contractulation of 3 different Hebraic terms to show you that he never changes. You understand? Okay? We actually have letters stating from one rabbi to another, and he said, you know the vowel pointings for le'olam and the yud he vav he are the same? He goes, yes, but destroy this letter because other people are not supposed to know about it. Okay? We have documentation backing the statement up that goes back for a long, long, long time. Okay? But it fits the context above all else with the actual statement. Now, if we fit that understanding into the first, who was the first? God was there in the very beginning. Yes?
Yes.
Is he there now? Yes. Will he forever be?
Yes.
Yes. He is the strong one. He is the Aleph. Yeshua will say, I am the Aleph Tav. I am the Alpha and Omega. He is the Aleph. You with me? Right, brains hurting yet? The rest is easier, I swear. Okay? Promise. I promise. Alright. So we go to Bet. Bet means house. So, according to the house that's being established by God, you will have no copy. The first letter of the Bible starts with a Bet. Bereshit, Genesis. Because it's a story about a God and his household, whom he created for himself. And it's an interesting thing that Ben, son, starts with it as well. The son created by him for himself. Okay? Gimel. Together. If you become to God and you walk alongside him, and means together or walk, you will take his name and you will represent him wherever you go. By representing him, people will come to you because you bring light. Shabbat, what is Delet? A door or the way. Okay? Now, Yeshua said, I am the way, the truth, and the life. I'm going to unpack that in the next session, as John talks about truth. So he goes, the way to the Father, or what separates you, and this is an interesting thing. If we break up the Shabbat, it means to press or separate onto the house a sign or the covenant. That this one means. And the Paleo Hebrew for this mark is a cross. Now, what great event happened that got them out of slavery where a sign was pressed into the house?
Yes, sir.
It was Passover, the blood on the doorpost, yes? The blood that brought life because death could not enter. It was pressed into the house. So let's spiritualize that for a second, bear with me. If Yeshua is the way, that which is pressed in to separate for the Father's house. If you become a believer, you become a son and a daughter of the Most High. From a kingdom point of view, what separates you is Him pressing into you that you belong to. Shabbat, later, it's called a sign between us that we belong to Him. How will that happen? Later, through a cross. Okay? When we get to Chet, Chai, not Chai,
Hey.
Hey. The Hey means to reveal. How do I understand a father and obeying instruction with my relationship with my father and my mother? Now, if God in Elohim is Father, where does mommy come in?
Nurturing.
Okay? There's an interesting thing when you start studying Hebrew, you see there's masculine and there's feminine. Elohim or El is masculine. Shekhinah, the very presence of God, or Ruach, is feminine. Okay? It's not saying that God is both male and female, it's saying that He has different aspects of Himself. El Shaddai, a Shad is a female's breast. It is, some say, transform that as chest. And they say, like, as I carry my child and I carry him close to my chest, he'll hear my heartbeat. I think it's deeper than that. I think it has to do with mommy's milk provides everything that baby needs.
Nurturing.
Everything. It's that time of nurturing, the time of contact, the antibodies, everything that you need will come there. You don't have to worry about a specific formula of protein versus veggies and fruit and all the rest of it. Everything is taken care of. Perfect by design. And as God is that to us in the beginning, He nurtures us and He lifts us and He gets us to that place. So He shows Himself aspects of that. If you listen to your parents who remind you about this story of what I had to do to get you here, if you remember the stories of Abraham, Yitzhak, Yaakov, because of this covenant, you will live long in the land. Why? Because you know you were put there for a purpose. Remember your covenants of old. Remember why you were born. Remember why God saved you. They didn't even know His name. They didn't even know who He was. Moses, what am I going to call you? Now, this is a guy who's supposed to represent this God to a nation. Tells him, I will be what I will be. And so, we get this separation, and He goes, okay. This is who we are, and I will be your father. I will bring you out. I will carry you like an eagle carries its wings, or carries this eaglet on the back of its wings, and I will bring you to the land. He's going to reveal Himself through that relationship. Vav means it's a nail, but it's attached or joined. Now, why would I use that for murder? Because, think of the first reference, Cain and Abel. Sin attached itself to Cain, and he couldn't get away from it, right? The yield would not give him, the fruit of the field would no longer produce for him. He was set apart even in a broken society. And then?
The nail that's crucified Yeshua.
Right.
Sin attached to him.
Also, if we think of the piercing that happened, right? Okay. Sin attached to him, it becomes a murder that is going to bring us a sacrificial idea. Okay. Zion means?
Cut.
Okay. It's a picture of a weapon. It means to cut. Sometimes referred to as to plow. Adultery. Okay, so that which we do when we cut a covenant to establish, there will be blessings. But if I go against my God, it is something that destroys the covenant. It is also if someone commits adultery, what is generally happened to the relationship afterwards? Destroyed. The weapon comes in and it severs everything. Okay? Says a person is not allowed to leave his wife except for sexual immorality. You have severed everything between us. Okay? A chet. What does it mean? A barrier. Stealing. Will it create a barrier between us and God?
We need a barrier.
Okay? We create a wall. Sin starts with a chet, if I remember correctly, chatat. And chatat means to build a wall between us. So that when I sin, I end up pushing God away. And especially when I try and justify my sin, I tell them, no thanks, no thanks, no thanks. And then eventually I want to live my life for me. But we know that as I ostracize him, I start to push away any hope of real life. We need to be careful. Stealing will cause a barrier between us. And that will carry on. You steal someone's food, worst case scenario, they die. You steal their water, you steal their stuff, you steal this, etc., etc. Remember, in their life, when you steal someone's cloak, that might have been the only cloak they had. Yeah?
You also bring a barrier between the relationship.
Absolutely, between us. If I know,
There's no trust.
yeah, in a small community, can you imagine? Dude, you're wearing my cloak. It's like 150 of us. I'm the only one who had that cloak. No, I bought it from some tradesman. This one's got a hole in it. Where? Yeah. You know, of course it's going to build barrier in this relationship. False witness, what does the Tav represent? Sorry, the Tet. Not the Tav. Tet. The snake.
Basket, surround, hidden within.
Basket. Surround. Okay. Something hidden. Okay. It's a picture of a snake that will surround you, that will hide you, or something that is hidden inside of you. Snake is about deception. Right? The serpent deceived. And that, again, led to the demise of false witness, Yeshua. The enemy attacked until he destroyed him and surrounded him, right?
The serpent encircles you.
Right.
You said on Wednesday night, which was quite cool, he's the accuser of the brethren.
Absolutely. So he will continually bear false witness against you. Look at them, they're useless. Okay, sometimes we don't give him, we give him a lot of ammo. Right? You know, make balagan and he's like, you see? But when he doesn't have ammo, then he starts to slander. Think of Job. He only loves you because you gave him stuff, take away his stuff. He only loves you because you protect him in his health, you take away his health. He only loves you because, and so we will go on because he has no life in him, right? A yud. A hand.
Work, deed, worship.
Work. Deed. What does that got to do with coveting?
Gives you to take other people's stuff.
Right, think of Eve. If I'm focused on something, she saw the fruit was good, she thought about it, and then she grabbed it. How I go out, and this will either use for God's glory or would be used for mine. And so coveting is about what you do, but it starts with your eyes. Okay? You see it, you think about it, you grab it. You become what you put in here. Now, if we play it with Yeshua, through a hand, he revealed the nail to reveal. What was he revealing? The Father. And what's the Father about?
One of those.
Eternal life.
He wanted to set the captives free. The kingdom. I am the Lord your God who brought you out of the land of Egypt. I'm the one who saved you. I'm the reason you have life. Now because I saved you, you have a choice. This is where Exodus 19, the if comes from. If you follow, if you obey, then you will become a treasure. And you will protect other people. You will gather them. They will attach themselves to the shepherd so that God will be revealed. If you obey, you will reveal the heir, Yeshua. If you obey, you will be set apart. You will allow people to come in through the door or through the way. They will join themselves and they will be separate. That means they belong to Him. This is just subdivisions and sections of God's heart being poured out. And He says, my kingdom, first and foremost, I was from the very beginning, I am now, and I've always been about setting the captives free. I've always been about relationship. I've always been about my relationship with you and your relationship with each other. The kingdom of heaven, established through blood. You guys can walk down in Exodus 24. The sprinkling of the blood of the covenant that takes place is to set them apart. Something that is sprinkled with blood. You are now belonging to Him. When Yeshua offers you that cup and He says, this is my blood. And you're set apart because of a choice you make. Because of your heart condition. Because you need to understand this. To reveal Himself to you through a hand and a nail. So that He can set you free. So that you will know where you belong in His house. That you have been gathered to walk with Him. That you have a sign that says you belong to Him. That you will reveal who He is, the Father of all creation. How the murderer is a problem. And as we go on, these things will only break you. So He says, look guys, you're living in a broken world. I've been there from the beginning. I want you to belong in the new creation that's coming. Where I'm going to deal with all the brokenness. So, shall we finish off with, I am the Aleph Tav. Okay? Now that happens in Hebrew when it talks about an indefinite article. When you're talking about this pen, you use the word et. Now in the first, for those of you who are here, in Genesis 1, there is the term et used twice, but the first time it's used, it has no reason that it's there. It's just an Aleph Tav. 7 words in the first thing, only 6 are translated. They don't understand why it's there. It's a bit of a puzzle. And Yeshua says, I am the Alpha and Omega, right at the end. Okay? Alpha is the first letter in the Greek alphabet. Omega, the last. I am the Aleph, the first letter in the Hebrew alphabet, and the Tav, the last. I'm the beginning and the end. Okay? Aleph, first. The strong. Tav, the sign for the covenant. That's for sure.
So as if she's saying as well, I'm the Aleph Tav and I'm that which you do not understand.
That we will. Something we overlook. So when the kingdom of heaven is being established, for each person, setting them free from themselves, setting them free from the world, setting them free from broken cycles, setting them free from everything, your job then becomes to reveal God to everybody else. And if we do that, He'll become something very precious to them. Amen? Amen. All right. Prayer time is at done.